States and it's raining. It doesn't rain on that day.
The things people will believe.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
The sun is up in Nairobi at 19, highs of 29 and lows of 17 today. It's sunny at 18 in Nakuru, highs of 29, and we'll see highs of 28 in a sunny Nyeri at 15, and it's 15 and sunny in Eldoret, highs of 26 and lows of 12. Sunny at 28 in Mombasa, highs of 32, and we'll see highs of 31 in Kakamega, where it's sunny at 27. 22 and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 29, and 19 and sunny in Kakamega, going to highs of 30 today. Into Kampala, it's sunny at 19, highs of 26, and highs of 32 in a mostly sunny Dar es Salaam at 29. It's 14 and sunny in Johannesburg. 25 will be the high and lows of 13. Still the same in Lagos at 27. Clear conditions. Highs of 33 and lows of 27. And it's a cloudy morning in Kinshasa. Highs of 31 and lows of 23. All right, it's looking much better on the Thika Superhighway this morning. We're just past the Usali Drift with some traffic now. And Campbell Road actually not doing too badly today. What happened? It's Thursday, no traffic day. Should be a new, label that we give to Thursdays. Not too bad, actually. We're looking at a little bit of traffic then coming on James Gishuru, heading out into the city. The service lanes doing really well on the Thika Superhighway. And the Southern Bypass saying, here I am, once again, not too much in terms of traffic. Let's take a look in about half hour and see as things progress. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. SpiceFM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.
20 minutes to 9. The conversation continues with the Reverend Dennis Ndumbi, who is politics, governance and security commentator. And he's here because he's one of the people who filed a petition seeking the removal of the 4 commissioners of the IEBC. Now, those 4 have been removed from... No, 1 has been removed from office, 3 resigned from office. And Dennis is here saying, you filed that petition because you'd like things never to happen the way you saw them happen in 2022.
Absolutely.
Do you think all those things that you're talking about, there was before the election, you say allegations of voter bribery, vote suppression, do you think they impacted the outcome of the election?
Do you think? Sorry?
Do you think they impacted the outcome of the election?
Yes, they did. Essentially, we had an election that seemed like apathy was the worst since independence.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, the voter turnout wasn't good. And the reason why the voter turnout wasn't good was because when you look at the aspect of apathy itself, is that people really never come to vote. They don't believe that political outcomes will change their state of life when they're hungry, especially when they're starving. But essentially, part of the reason why the voter turnout was low is not because of apathy. It's because it was deliberate suppression all through.
How did that happen?
Buying of IDs. One ID was 4,500. We have this evidence at the end of the day. I know where exactly it was
and you
happening.
say it was so widespread that it actually affected the outcome of the election?
I'm telling you, there was almost about 10 billion shillings that were released for this exercise. And it was extremely widespread.
Are you calling into question the integrity of the election? You know those words that I use? Free, fair, credible, transparent.
No, those ones, essentially, the election was free and fair, as the Supreme Court conducted.
Was it transparent?
But they were absolutely transparent.
Was it credible?
It was very credible. The outcome was excellent. What I'm saying is that there were Kenyans who were denied the right to vote because the prevailing economic circumstance and hunger circumstances in the country, they chose to sell the IDs for 4,500. And the chiefs, the administration system was being used for this. Some of them
That
political leaders.
is an electoral offence.
It's an electoral offence.
And if it is so widespread, then it calls to question the credibility of that election.
Not the credibility of the elections. You know, the election is basically
If
meant
the
on
election,
The election is
has
not an event on the
widespread
day alone.
malpractice,
Now-
if there was widespread malpractice, as you allege, then you're basically alleging that the credibility of that election comes to question.
Not the
As does
credibility,
then
no.
the credibility of the IEBC
Not at
over
all.
whom the chairmanship of one man who you claim to be the hero of the election then also comes into question. Because we cannot look at an election as the 9th of August alone. There are processes which lead up to this election. And there are certain things that are put in place to enable an election take place on a particular day. Now, if you are saying that certain things happened to preclude this from happening on said day, it brings the entire process
Not
into
entirely
question.
true. No,
Yes, it does.
No, it's not true. Now, the outcome of the election is specified by the integrity and the fidelity of the voting processes. Now, I'm not putting in question in the voting processes. What happened within the polling stations was A1. The transmission was A1. The opaqueness was not there, as it was judged and ruled in 2017. Essentially what I'm saying is that there were Kenyans who are not afforded the right to vote.
So that means
The
what
right to
happened
vote
at the polling
is not,
station was
no,
not
it,
A1.
It did not happen at the polling station. You put the integrity.
People did not access the polling station.
No, it's not an access. Look,
If they were denied the opportunity to vote,
That means they
they were
did not
denied,
access.
they were denied access.
when you went to the polling station, nobody denied you access.
That's because you had the opportunity
If
to
I'd
vote
already
by virtue of
sold
the
my
fact.
vote-
If you sold your vote, you would not be at the polling
Because
station.
I'd been forced by circumstances, as you're saying, it was a clearly manipulated plot and clearly designed scheme
The
to make sure
integrity-
that I get to a point where if somebody came to me with some money, I'll take the money and give them my and give up
Essentially-
my voting right.
The maxim of an integrous election is mapped. And I agree with you that there are offenses in terms of vote buying and whatever it is that there is. You can't vote without the ID.
True.
So it doesn't have to be essentially an electoral process.
Okay.
They use the kazi kwa vijana to say that if we owe you money for a year, we haven't paid you for a year, you have to leave your ID behind so that we can process your payments. And they never gave back those IDs. You understand? But also they were deliberately buying IDs 3 weeks prior to the election.
Okay. This was known information, Dennis. I must ask you
This
this,
is
before
known
you. Okay, so
information.
hold
This
on,
is known
please.
information.
I must ask you.
Yes.
If this was known by you, who you say you're a citizen concerned, an analyst, are you saying then that at this time, when these things were going on, the IEBC, who is responsible for delivering the process and the event of an election on the day, did not know about this? And if they did, why then are they not being brought to question about not raising the flag on some of these issues? Did they know as well?
I
Or
don't
was it a
know.
secret at that
Essentially,
time?
I have no
did
idea.
Did it only come out after the fact? When did this, because this is a serious allegation. If these things actually happened and it was known to Dennis and CT and Ndu, people who could see and know, and the IEBC knew about it maybe as well and did not bring it up, how then can we say that a credible election was held? The process, which you've just admitted to as well, the process, how can we say that whole thing was credible if the IEBC knew about such serious offences and said nothing about it?
Well, essentially, as I said, is that a credible election is known by certain standards. And those standards are prescribed by law. If you decide to sell your ID and it's not on the voting day, it's not part of the process, it's an offense. You and the one who bought the ID are essentially committing a malpractice in any way, in any day. But everything that happens in a polling station, the processes and the procedures are supposed to be open, and that is the maxim based on the John Githongo case, that we know that a credible election has been done. Everything, the tabulations and whatever it is, whether it is 10 people who show up, of course, it's a threshold. There's the presidential candidate need to meet a certain number of counties and a certain number of percentage at the end of the day. But based on what happens at the polling station, that is the beginning and the end of a presidential election. Whatever happens there then is what is transmitted to the national
election.
center.
Dennis, the election.
What I'm saying is this.
The election is an event. From the moment the IEBC gazettes the date of the election process is on course. And that is why the IEBC is very clear. If you commit an electoral offense, you are committing an electoral offense. If you bribe voters, if you participate in voter suppression, if you participate in intimidation or violence against electoral officials, if you did any of those things, you're committing an electoral offense. An election is in effect. If you have suppressed, and you're saying that a sufficient number of voters were suppressed, and
Absolutely.
I asked you, do you think it impacted the outcome? And you say that unequivocally you said yes, it impacted the outcome. It was impacting the outcome of the election. That means
Not a credible election.
credibility.
No. Those are words you're putting in my mouth.
Which one?
What I
That
say,
it's impacted the impact of the
specifically?
election?
I told you that what it impacted was the number of Kenyans that are supposed to come and vote. The number of Kenyans essentially who would have voted this time round. There was a sizable drop in those number of Kenyans at the end of the day. This did not affect the processes that define a prudent election, by all means. Now, she asked me about whether or not that IBC knew. I don't work for IBC, so I wouldn't know. And that's the reason why I wanted for the tribunal, for Chebukati to come and say himself, as IBC, what he knew on that particular day, and which he came and testified. He was the last tribunal witness. For us to know the extent at which there were malpractices, a commission of inquiry has to be put through by the president. And that is when, because the tribunal only focused on the removal of office, and even based on that removal of office, there was a lot of truths that were spoken that are part of the tribunal, Muchelule tribunal report. But for us to bring in all players and then gauge and size the kind of criminal capability and criminal threshold that was perpetuated holistically before the elections, during the elections, and after the elections, an inquiry, a commission of inquiry has to be put in place. And this is something that has voiced that the president needs to put this in place, because there are a lot of things that happen that shouldn't be happening. There was the constitution was contravened quite incredibly by players who wanted to basically institute a coup and subvert the will of the people and move this country from legal thresholds into political thresholds, where the country is on fire and politicians have to discuss. Working with nations that have gone into this space, and I've worked with about 2 or 3 nations, is that politicians usually get comfortable and they don't want to get the country back to its legal threshold, because they will lose the money, they will lose the power, they will lose deals, they will lose a lot of these things. So the population remains in squalor while the politician is benefiting at the end of the day. And it starts from gentleman's agreement. And I refer you to a nation like South Sudan. South Sudan has been transitioning for years. They only had 1 year of peace. And after that, essentially now I think the last 2 years is when they put in a transitional government in place, and they have a transitional assembly, assembly at the end of the day. But when you look at it, is that we were not able to recover fully. And that is the reason why I petitioned. But I'm saying, the question you're asking is critical. We can only know that when a commission of inquiry is put in place. But the threshold of an integrous election is now what we call res judicata, has been fully judged by the Supreme Court. If anybody wants to know whether the election was integrous or not, whether the counting, the tallying process was good, Supreme Court dealt with that matter judiciously. It's a matter that has been settled by the courts. And we can only refer. Yes, they did. Because what was put in question was that. And they exhausted that aspect and they said, you know what?
Did they?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. What was not discussed by the Constitution, and this is something that was brought into the tribunal, was the conduct of the 4 commissioners. Is something that the Supreme Court did not do, and that's the reason why, based on the relevant articles of the Constitution, I petitioned Parliament then, based on Article 251, asked the President to put together a tribunal, and tribunal essentially afforded fair hearing for Masit. The rest of them, immediately I put this tribunal through, they decided to resign rather than contest. But unfortunately, out of all my 16 charges, Masit never responded to any. In fact, I was wondering, Masit's counsel only came for cross-examination. He never responded to anything. Masit never filed anything back, never challenged anything at the end of the day, and all those then were accepted as true. It was just maybe for show or camera, but I never received anything back. None of it was challenged. So you negate your right to fair hearing, and all you want to come and do is question whether is your white hair real or you die. You know, it has nothing to do with the very serious charges that are getting out of office.
Is that the only interpretation that can be given to the matters that occurred during this tribunal? The interpretation that you're giving us?
Which one?
That Masit neglected or negated the opportunity she had for actually presenting her case fairly.
She did present her case fairly, but she refused to challenge all the allegations. None of them. Our counsel never reverted to anything.
Have we in this country ever had a situation similar to this one where people who are charged with ensuring that the conduct of an election goes through in the manner that is determined and prescribed by law? Have we ever had a tribunal bringing about such an issue to the public?
No, this is the first one.
Precisely. So when you talk about the insecurity and the matters that were before us at Bomas and all the things that happened and everything that took place and the outcomes, have we ever had such a situation before in this country?
The last
the uncertainty, the insecurity, the
when you look at both the CLIGRA and the Waki report, they have exhausted majority of those happenings. And I told you, from 1997, 2007, all the way to 2022, we've always had these issues. And it has happened 2 ways. That those who lose never accept they've lost judiciously. And then the Electoral Commission is accused of malpractices. That has always been the case. And essentially what I wanted to mitigate, when you look at Masit was taken to court before, and the judge mentioned something, and he says, if I remove now, we will then disturb the quorum. But her matter on whether she's competent enough was adjudicated by the court. But the judge did not remove her because of quorum issues, and it was already constituted. But you can see attraction on the fact that based on the Waki report, and based on the CLIGRA report, we then formatted independent electoral and boundaries commission in its own independence. And it enshrined 2 things: its independence and the security of tenure of commissioners.
How then?
What we were dealing with before anyone could tell you.
But Reverend, how do we talk about independence when every time we want to form a commission, the very process of determining who is in that commission is brought to question?
I agree with you, and that's the reason why.
So even now, the political process is never really far from the formation of this. But then the argument about complainants, you see, the pattern that you speak of is clear, but then it was disturbed in 2017, because then the complainants were found to actually have an issue that the court felt was adequate, and we went for a re-election. What am I saying? Can we perhaps interpret everything that you've said and say that these are the processes, these are the throes, these are the happenings that we can chalk down as being details of Kenya finding its path to democracy, or a democracy that they can describe as their own? All these things, because we say we are in a democratic process, and everything that is happening, if we take your argument, with every process we seem to learn something and we seem to find ways of improving. So everything in summation is just a description of how Kenya has gone through the processes of determining its own democratic path.
I agree with you. I agree with you fully. The danger would be for us to negate to do this advancement. The danger would be for us to negate to challenge any darkness whatsoever, and it remains a status quo. One of the things that I found extremely rigorous is the term of office. I never knew that getting someone out of office is this difficult and expensive and painful. You almost feel as a complainant that justice is being delayed.
Don't you think that is actually assuring independence of the office?
It is, but I realize that true independence is based on self-governance, the integrity of the soul and the heart of man. If you can be in an independent commission, but you're not independent, you can be in the media, the fourth estate that has been birthed from the freedom of speech, from the Bill of Rights. But at the end of the day, you're not independent, So it depends if we don't have self-governance. You can be in any commission and you're not independent. And then so what happens is that you disturb the balance of that independence because you can be bought by anyone. One of the things I need to say is that you said something critical. The selection process has been mad and segmented. And that's the reason why the amendment that happened in Parliament the other day was to respond to the judgment of Judge Murima, who said if you don't amend the selection process, you will always not have an independent commission, because a certain majority of politicians can decide to bring in commissioners who are on their side. But now when you look at the current constitution of the selection panel, it is extremely difficult for you to bring commissioners of your choice as a politician.
4 people are politicians. 2 from parliament, 2 from political parties. Those are 4 politicians.
I can tell you one thing. Those people don't agree with each other.
Okay.
They don't agree. When you put 4 politicians in one room, you will have 4 opinions, not one opinion.
In this country, you have one opinion.
No. It's not as easy. And I'm telling you the truth.
Okay.
Yeah. But essentially, it affords us, there's progression, as you said. There's progression. We don't have a segmented selection panel as we did. And based on that fact, is that we are likely now to get better commissioners. And if those commissioners repeat what the 4 commissioners did, we will still have them.
Spice up your life.
Reverend Asante Sana for
Asante
joining us.
Sana.
Keep it here for more conversations. We keep going. It's 9 a.m.
Good morning, this is the Newswire. I'm Leah Ubaga. Justice Janet Mulwa will today give a verdict on the petition of Kajiado gubernatorial case. The court had earlier ordered scrutiny and recount of votes cast in 16 polling stations spread across the county be done. 2 petitioners filed a petition to challenge Governor Joseph Olelenku's win, with 5 respondents named in the petition. Deputy Registrar of the Elections Court had been mandated to preside over the exercise. Lenku, his deputy Martin Moshiso, and IBC Kajiado returning officer Festus Musheke had been named as respondents in the case. President William Ruto has announced that Kenya and the Republic of Congo will jointly review visa requirements for their citizens. This will be part of the long-term plan to install a business-friendly regime in the region between the 2 states. This event comes after last month Kenya and Eritrea agreed to permanently scrap visa requirements for their citizens. President William Ruto and Isaias Afwerki explained the move with will catalyze the country's economic transformation. And the government has denied claims that there are plans to privatize public universities in the country. President William Ruto has said that his government will continue to fund public universities as well as ensure that students get loans for higher education through HELB. In a statement read by the CS of Education Ezekiel Mashogu during the graduation ceremony at Kabianga University, President Ruto said that the current plan is to align the universities to ensure that the courses offered are in line with international standards. At the same time, Mashogu has said that the national government is working closely with governors to strengthen the education of technical institutions. Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna has called on the Kenya Kwanza government to reintroduce subsidies as they come up with ways of improving the country's economy. Sifuna says the government has been unable to come up with a concrete plan that will reduce the cost of living, something that is currently hurting Kenyans.
I bought tokens for my house. Just for comparison, in 18th July last year, 3,000 shillings got me 137 units. And if you look at the fuel charge then, it was 635 shillings. Only 1,728 out of 3,000 shillings went to the token amount. If you look at the cost yesterday of electricity, the same 3,000 shillings got me only 117 units of electricity. And the amount that was spent on the token is 1,474, which is less than half. So that more than 51% of the money you spent on electricity goes to taxes and levies. We were thinking that there was an undertaking from this current administration that within, I think they said 90 days, that we would see a reprieve. But what we are seeing is that they have been unable to come up with any concrete plan that would reduce the cost of living.
Sifuna further stated that it was unfortunate that the prices of staple food had drastically gone up.
You are talking about the price of sukuma wiki and tomatoes jumping by 11% and 7.8% respectively. If we get to sukuma wiki being unaffordable, because sometimes even if you don't have a protein in your meal, you can have your slice of ugali and sukuma wiki and you call it a day. But even sukuma wiki now is becoming unaffordable. Tomatoes are becoming unaffordable. So what we want to see, and this is why when we were at the Jivanji prayer rally, we gave the administration 14 days to come true on their own promises to lower the cost of living, because we believe there are things that can be done.
Opposition leader in Tanzania, Godbless Lema of the Chadema party, who was in exile for more than 2 years, has returned to the country. Lema's return comes several months after Tundu Lissu of the same party returned to the country to prepare for the 2025 general elections. Lema escaped to Canada in November 2020, claiming that his life was threatened by the former government of President John Pombe Magufuli. Speaking to his supporters in Arusha, Lema has promised a great campaign to achieve Chadema's victory in the next election.
Ndugu zangu, to retreat is not to surrender. Leo nimerudi na nimerudi kwa kishindo. Sikiliza, hao watu nawapelekea mziki mnene, wakitasha, wakiswaz na wakichuga-chuga. Wepesi hawa. Wepesi. Toka juzi na waona wamesema maandamano ya Chadema hata kuwepo, mama na mkutano na mawaziri. Nasoma kwenye group, nikamwambia tutamkaribisha mama aje kwenye mkutano.
That's the Newswire. I'm Lea Ubaga.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
All right, so we're looking at traffic. Actually, not doing too badly today. Coming off the Superhighway is where you probably see the most of it right now. Gong Road looks good. It looks good coming out of Westlands into the CBD. It's probably where you see most of the action right about now. It has been a good day traffic-wise. People have not been stuck where they were going. So, yay. What else are we looking at? Nothing really. Let's see how it pans out in another half hour or so. Yes? All right. Let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter, just in case.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
7 minutes after 9. Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us to the final hour of Kenya's biggest conversation on this second day of the third month of 2023. Remember, if you're thinking to fly Emirates, and if you're thinking to fly luxury, fly Emirates first class or business. Because of why?
Because the luxury is on another level. Imagine sleeping as though you were sleeping in your bed, but you're 40,000 feet above sea level. I mean, having a meal in the sky amongst friends, not in the, sitting just.
And not just a meal to those two things that you're given to you.
No.
Gourmet.
I'm telling you, luxury at its best in the sky. Who wouldn't want it?
And then you're sleeping up there, you sleep flat.
That's right.
You wake up, it's been 14 hours at your 14-hour flight.
And you come out looking like,
14 hours is a long time.
It's more than you sleep twice. You don't sleep 14 hours one night.
14 hours?
You don't even sleep 7, do you?
Man. You're up there in the sky, you're just traveling for 14 hours. Hey, well, yeah, you need a flatbed. Yeah, you better just afford yourself. Get onto Emirates first class business. Fly better with Emirates. We have a new guest joining us in the studio. Her name is Liz Lenjo. She is the chair of the Copyright Tribunal. Today is Thursday. It's a Justice Thursday conversation. Good morning, Liz.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, sorry, your mic was off. Say again. Good morning, Liz.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Karibu sana. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Asante.
That's the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Yes, it feels very hot.
Does it? It was Dennis who was there before. He's a pastor. He's a reverend. He walks with the warmth.
Indeed.
That's it. C.T. Muga always gives us a daily proverb, and he selects a country. He gives us the proverbs from that country for an entire week. Monday, Tuesday, yesterday, and today, and hopefully tomorrow. You never know with C.T. The proverbs are from Uganda. C.T.?
Yes, today's proverb. One who was not there kills the buffalo.
One who was not there kills. What does that mean?
Another great thing.
Liz, what do you understand?
Wow. I guess I understand it as the person who was not in the presence of whatever challenge would have a better killing it mindset because they have a can-do attitude. That's my assumption from what it sounds like. So it means that they come with a fresh perspective and they're able to bring something into the table and get the work done. That's what I think. Am I right?
No.
So this person was not there in the planning of this particular hunt. And then they come in and these other guys have just been running with this buffalo left, right, and center.
Yeah, they've been obsessing over it. And this one was like, we kill it.
Just kill the thing.
It's a very good perspective.
It's an interesting one.
Yes.
That's a very interesting one.
It's a very good. The thing about proverbs is there is no right and wrong, really.
Yeah.
Yes. It's you listen to it and it's where it touches you and where it bears meaning. In fact, that was the purpose of proverbs, for someone to draw meaning from it, something that reflects on their own circumstances and situation. So you are quite right.
Excellent. Good for me.
Yay!
Congratulations.
Yay.
Liz, the Copyright Tribunal. Introduce us to it.
Okay. So the Copyright Tribunal is basically a specialized court that listens to copyright disputes. And, it's very hard to talk about Copyright Tribunal if you don't talk about copyright. Yeah? Because I feel like for the longest time, intellectual property, because copyright falls on intellectual property law, right? So for the longest time, this intellectual property law has been feeling like an elitist monster, for lack of a better term, right? Because guys are like, oh, IP is just for people who have money, for the big corporates. Yeah, but do you ask yourself, how do these big corporates become big, right? It started from the creations of the mind, right? It means I sat down and I thought about a program, for example, like what we have here. This is someone's intellectual property, subsequently owned by the company, right? But it started with someone, yeah? So someone sat down and said, I want to create something. So they sit down, they envision it, and then they manifest it in a way. So like with copyright, we call it fixation. So you, from the head, from that script you have in your mind, then you write it down, right? The minute you write it down, it becomes a property. It's an intangible property and it's protectable. The thing with Africans is we've always been, shamba. Piece of land is all we know.
That is property.
Yeah, that is property. So when some people, you tell them intangible property, what is that? What are you talking about? No, go to school and become a doctor. You want to be a musician? No, you want to be a filmmaker. You know, that has always been the challenge. And for me, I come from a creative background, and you know, having been in that space, and in uni, I had the privilege of being in a music studio. And then I saw this hard work people were putting in. I was part of a girl group that didn't, it didn't make it because of certain challenges, infrastructural challenges, IP being one of them. But you can imagine people are in a studio, they've made a queue, and there is someone behind this beautiful gadget waiting to listen to artists one by one, and they sing and they do corrections and they do their whatever. They're like, all that fancy stuff. Like, that is work. So when I would sit and I see that, and I'm like, oh my goodness, we only see the beautiful stuff on TV or listen it on radio, but we never ask ourselves what kind of investment goes into it. And slowly I would start having conversations with artists, and that's how I understood IP became this thing that they didn't think made sense to them. It was so unreachable, so expensive. Yeah. And I think it's really time we have more conversations about intellectual property, about copyright, because once we understand first what it is we are creating, then now we know how to protect it, which includes now dispute resolution. How do you fight better, or how do you defend your rights better, right? But you have to first understand what are these rights.
There are myriad of examples when talking about this, because I've even just the other day reading through some things, and then there was yet another person who was complaining, I took this idea to my supervisor and I said, this is something that we can actually do, and they said, okay, well, maybe we'll get back to you. A year later, you find that the organization has then used the idea that you brought to them, and they're making money out of it, and you're left on the cold hard floor. Are we drawing linkages then between what it should be? So if I have an idea and I bring it to you, and it looks like it's something that will be viable, how do I go about protecting it, even if I'm going to give the usage of it to somebody else? How do we start this whole process? What should it look like?
Okay. So once it's in the mind, remember I said you have to fixate it or figure out how to bring it to life, right? Because once you bring it to life, then you're able to seek assistance on how do you need to protect it. And that assistance would either mean you have invested in yourself, did a small course on introduction to intellectual property, at least you know where you're starting from, or you find a competent lawyer who will then explain to you and give you the ABC of how to protect yourself. Because again, also with IP, it's about, once you tell me what this is you have created or you're creating, I'm able to tell you, is it a copyright? Is it a patent? And the patent is the word that's most commonly misused, right? Because I think it's just a common term. And I think it's time to demystify those terms, right? And for the demystification is not for people to just to cram, but to just know. But if you just say, I protect my IP, that's fine. I protect the expression of my ideas, it's fine, right? Leave the technicalities to us. However, a patent is the highest form of protection when it comes to intellectual property law. It means you are the first person in the whole world. Nobody has ever heard of it. So you see that threshold is really high, right? It's new, it's novel. And then for us, we look at industrial applicability, which means it has that scientific, manufacturing, technical aspect to it.
Is it that nobody else has ever heard of it and nobody else has ever done it, or you were the first to note it down when it becomes a patent?
So you are, first of all, you're the first one to have ever done it, right? You are the first one to have ever thought about it, yeah? So the thing is, when we're looking about that newness and novelty, it means it's nowhere
Okay.
Like if I even check on the internet, I can't see it.
Okay.
That's the thing.
That is not being the first to have thought about it.
Yeah, so thought about it, but
it's the first
expressed
to have
it,
expressed
put it together. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. But still, at the time when you're innovating, even you yourself, you're like always like, I'm the first one.
Yeah, everybody thinks that they're first.
Yeah, exactly. So you have to make sure then, true to fact, that it is not. Yeah. So that's how you then get a patent, and it's an exclusive right for 20 years. So no one can touch it without your permission for 20 years. And, we're talking about manufacturing, science, tech. It's huge, right? So even the returns are always much bigger, right? Because you're revolutionizing an industry. Yeah. So it's actually a very commonly misused word. So you'll hear people say, oh, I want to patent idea. No, I want to protect the expression of my idea. So how are you expressing your idea? Then how do we protect it? So you find that most of the time, like especially people in the arts, we're not patenting ideas. But that's not to mean that there are no patentable innovations in the creative industry, right? I mean, like even, for example, a mobile, it's in as tech, but it has revolutionized the entertainment industry, for example. Yeah. So there are possibilities of that. But you'll find that most of the time now when it comes to this expression of ideas, we're talking about literary works, artistic works, audiovisual works, sound recordings like what we will listen to after this program has been recorded and shared elsewhere.
Yeah.
We're talking about broadcast, we're talking about photography, we're talking about sculptures, software. We protect software by copyright because of the nature of the source code. It's like literary works, right? We're talking about, the musical compositions. We're talking about architecture. Yeah, architectural people. Drawings. They don't imagine that they have copyright, but they do. Yeah. So you see the artistic entertainment sort of space, that's where it falls. Even people in the education sector. I create a curriculum. That's my copyright. And then, it will vest in the individual who creates it. And then you'll find that in some instances, either A, you are under employment, so you'll have an Employment Act. And in the Employment Act, the default position is if you create something, it becomes your employer's because you're being paid. So if you know about this, then you are able to negotiate and say, hey, I'm Eric. I come with this kind of experience. I want to negotiate. If I create any new assets, I want to be a co-owner.
While in employment.
Yes, you can. I mean, that's something you've created. You're bringing them something new, right? Something that will change their business, something that will make them money.
Exactly that.
Yeah. So
should this be at that point of negotiating the initial contracts?
Exactly.
So what you're saying, this is your job description, and this is what you're entitled to in terms of compensation. But then you also add a clause and say, any innovations that I come up with that we can protect, I will share in ownership of it. Yeah,
like it's a negotiation.
Which means that if you haven't included that clause in your contract, then you own nothing.
Then you own nothing. Because the default position of the law is that when you're employed, it belongs
to the employer.
Same thing with now a work for hire. I don't know how to develop software, right? Then I go to a software developer and I say, hey, I want to create something in legal tech. I have to have a conversation and tell them expressly, because the law says that a right has to be transferred to me in writing. They have to transfer to me their copyright in writing. So even though I have paid, there has to be somewhere in writing that I have transferred. If it's not there, then the default position of the law, it still belongs to the author, right? So again, you see there, those dynamics that will change. And then where I create as myself and I commercialize as myself, I have all the rights. And then I can decide who I want to work with. And then there'll be contracts, and the different contracts will vary with the industry, like for musicians.
Please repeat that for City, because I can see he's looking at it. He's thinking, I have approached a techie, I have an idea, and I want this idea to actually come in the form of an app, all right, that offers this kind of service. And then I'll go to market with this app.
Yeah.
Unless the contract stipulates that the code belongs to CT, CT can go to market with the app, and then the writer of the code will come and say, but you're basically using my creation.
Yeah.
Hey, CT umesikia?
Yeah, so contracts.
But every time I listen to discussions around intellectual property rights, my mind immediately goes to the music industry.
Yeah.
And when you talk about protection, what I hear is that it is these protections that these laws provide that enables a musician to actually just forget getting rich. eke a living from whatever it is that they have brought into being.
Exactly.
But in a country like ours, I don't see it. So the question that is in my mind, the additional question that is in my mind is I'm asking, forget the enforcement, because enforcement in the absence of understanding is tricky. How do we get people to learn, understand and appreciate copyrights? Because to be a musician in this country or to be an artist, it's like a commitment to poverty.
Yeah.
You are more likely to have a name, people will know who you are, they will cherish what you do, they will enjoy it, but you will not be the direct beneficiary of whatever it is you have created that other people have enjoyed.
So I think there's an issue of culture change, right? Because when you look at historically how we have been approaching the arts especially, it was always your parents would say, oh, no, that's just a pastime. You're going to sing, it's just a pastime. You're just entertaining people. Yeah, you're drawing, so people will see your drawings. You know, yeah. So already that culture, it became so inculcated in us that even for us now, you would see that people will be like, if someone raises an issue on Twitter, especially KOT, you know, then people are like, why are they being petty? And people are trying to assert their rights. So you can see already there's a cultural issue. And I'll take it back to when Sauti Sol had that issue and they put it online.
Yep.
The comments from Kenyans was something. Like I would see people say, oh, they're being petty. Oh, see, it's a song that we can use.
Yeah.
What is their problem?
And they're getting
I'm
exposure.
Like, they're getting exposure. So already that cultural issue, especially from the consumer perspective. And then from the artist perspective and the creative's perspective, it's a urafiki kind of thing. I want to be a celeb, you know, I want to be known. So they forget about the business. And then there are people who now understand the business and they'll say, hey, City ajui chochote. Let me go and, you know, masquerade hapo hivyo, sign contracts on his behalf, making chums. You go for a gig, you're told, hey, City, manze, these guys have said, unapata 220K. And a guy has cool at like 150. This guy's been even signing contracts on your behalf and you've never investigated. A guy goes for meetings, you're not asking him, boss, uliambo nini kwa meeting? What am I expected?
Show me the contract.
Yeah, nothing. So people don't have that, they've not been having that business mindset. We have those who are there. And I think the challenge is to the media to also now start telling these stories more. Let's not just talk about the fluff of music and entertainment. Let's also talk about the entertainment side, right? Let's talk, the business side. Let's talk about the legal side, because all this stuff will start from the legal builds up the business, and then also now you become a success, and now your fluff is worth something.
You know, it's interesting because a world that I inhabit periodically, the world of research, the language of intellectual property rights is common. It's something that people understand to a certain degree. But if you look at let me specifically medical research, part of the reason why there is strength in that particular arena is because of whatever else is associated with it. Because you're talking about the pharmaceutical industry, you're talking about the practice of medicine, you're talking about those who consume all these things, the impact of it. And so the value addition is not considered to be at the same level as entertainment. And yet entertainment is actually very crucial to our well-being.
Exactly.
In terms of importance, I would say entertainment is even more important.
It's therapy.
Yes, it is serious therapy. You see, my concern here is, how then do we shift this? The culture and tradition notwithstanding, how do we get people to understand the value? Because the value is actually before us, and the place it has in society is before us. I say this because you only need to look at the developed world and look at what entertainers earn, what people who are in sports, which is essentially also entertainment, earn, and the value they are given.
Yeah.
And then what is associated with it, what they wear, what they use, etc., etc. So there is an understanding of it elsewhere. Here, problem.
I think in our minds we have really overcomplicated it. Yeah. Because msanii hataki kuchoka. Yeah. If you tell msanii here's a contract, Ebu, just look and see if what do you understand? Because at the end of the day, it's still fundamental, right? As I might be your lawyer, but I need you to understand, yeah? So that if tomorrow I'm not there, how do you help yourself? Don't be so helpless. So it's about that ability to just say, you know what, I'm ready to learn, and I'm ready to to embrace the business side. I don't need to be that lawyer or that accountant, but to just know enough. To know enough when you're being cheated, to know enough when the deal is good, or to know when it makes sense and it will take you to the next level. Like, you just need just that enough knowledge, and then leave it to the professionals, and then interrogate those contracts. A friend says, no, you just come, kuja to record, and then and takushow because that's what normally happens. Then kidogo it's on an advert, and you're like, yo, my friend, that's my song, you guys, that's my job. Then your friends are like, so how much did you get paid? I'm supposed to get paid.
You're just happy that you've got to,
exactly. So
finally.
It's that mindset is really, really important. For example, with musicians, if four of us say today we're going to write a song, right? We have what we call a split sheet. And we say City comes up with a beat, Oko here is creating some lyrics, yeah? Then we're like, okay, she writes like the full verse or the full chorus, and you and I do a verse, but then she's done a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
Then we're able to sit down and say, you know what, I think mine is 20% because I've not done much.
So we prorate
As
their
20,
contribution.
Yeah, because you see, after we've done that, and we andikiana at that time, right? When we still don't see the potential of the song, and that time we are objective because we are fair.
Yeah.
We are fair to each other.
Yes.
So when we have that split sheet now, because this musical works will be used in an advertisement, in a movie, and for them to even use it in the beginning, they will say, where is your split sheet? Because we want to know ownership. We want to know, just like when you sell a shamba, if it's lease on the certificate, then we know we're dealing with lease, right? Yeah. So the same thing, they will want to see that split sheet, and then they'll say, okay, fine, we want to use this song, and we can see here, so we want to offer you X amount of money, and then we already know if 100K comes, the split sheet will take into effect 20, 60, whatever. We make our money. Right. We're happy people. Yeah. So, but we don't have those things. So you find that now, even in terms of value, when, say, for example, a foreigner wants to use the song, they're afraid of those complications because now they don't know, where is your split sheet? Oh, what's that? You nini?
Hii song ni yetu.
Yeah, hii song ni yetu. Wewe tupatie tu pesa.
Or depending on who they're talking to. If it's Ndu they're talking to, I wrote the verses anyway, so it's my song.
Yeah, exactly.
We forget our contribution.
Yes.
I just came up with a hook and ooh, which is which is actually
it's the meat of the
it's
song.
the meat of the song. All those are things that you wrote.
That was a pleasure.
People only remember.
Exactly. And you see, they already now see that dilemma. They'll be like, okay, now they don't want that drama that comes with now the post-production, and now someone is, even on social media, they start yelling and say, oh, so and so are thieves, they are stolen. But at the end of the day, ni sisi,
you didn't do the work.
We didn't do the work.
So at least it means that a lot of awareness is needed prior.
Yes.
So even by the time now we are coming to the tribunal, the only people who would come to the tribunal would be people who know of this whole process, and then they know about the existence of your tribunal.
Exactly.
Let's talk about that after the break, so that you tell us then what kind of issues do you deal with at your tribunal? How do you adjudicate them? How do you resolve matters? And in cases where you can clearly see here there's lack of understanding, what do you do to help the case going forward? You heard us talking about Emirates. Fly better with Emirates. Have you flown Emirates? Have you?
Oh, I have.
You have?
Oh.
You've flown Emirates?
Yeah, business class.
Hey, tell us.
Sorry.
Start from checking in. No, start from JKIA.
From JKIA.
Yes.
There's that VIP checking in section. You check in, you do the security. It's like a special. Even those guys, you feel like they respect you more.
When you compare
when you compare with the main gate, they'll be like, Madam, do you need help with your bags? Oh, this looks too heavy for you. They handle you with care.
Right.
Yeah. Then you go to the counter, the greetings and whatnot, they're smiling. And then they're like, oh, yeah, which, you've already selected your seat. They tell you, yeah, go to the lounge, yada, yada, yada. Utaratibu, you're kind of like an egg.
Not go to your gate, go to the lounge.
Go to the lounge.
Okay.
Go to the lounge, chill in the lounge, have some food. Yeah, as you chill.
As you wait to
as
board.
you wait to board. And then when the boarding starts, they say, first class and business class.
We'll board first.
Yeah, we board first. Yeah, that's because you stand with some husband. Every time you fly business class, man said there's this feeling, yani. So, and then now you're ushered in, then you sit, and the hostess comes and say, "Good morning, Miss Lenjo," or "Good evening, Miss Lenjo. May I offer you a drink? We have champagne, we have juice, we have a cocktail. If you're the healthy person, there's this cocktail mocktail or whatever, healthy drink, yada yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, health shot. And then they serve you and they say, "We'll be with you after takeoff." Yeah. And they come back. "Do you need a blanket? Da da da. Here is the menu." My friend.
What is heaven?
You guys, that is a slice of heaven.
What is heaven? This is it. Fly better. Fly Emirates. When you think, fly first class business with Emirates. 28 minutes to 10. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Fly Emirates first and business class and look forward to a journey that's as incredible as your destination. Start your holiday with delicious fine dining, impeccable service, and comfort that's out of this world. Sip drinks in our A380 onboard lounge on flights from Dubai and beyond. Watch a movie and drift into a restful sleep in flatbed seats. Treat yourself to Emirates first and business class. Fly Emirates. Fly better.
I have a brother. He was a pilot. He was laid off. He came to a policeman. He messed up.
He went from a pilot to a policeman.
Exactly.
He stole a jet.
Yeah.
In fact, you should be lucky he was not court-martialed.
The Spice Drive. Big hair and the biggest hits from the best decade.
Indeed, it's all about hashtag Spice Drive, hashtag Quatch KWAC.
Sunny day in Nairobi at 20, highs of 29 and lows of 17. It's sunny at 20 as well in Nakuru and 17, and sunny in Nyeri, highs of 26 is what we'll see in Eldoret today, where it's sunny at 18. 28 and mostly sunny in Mombasa. 28 is also sunny in Malindi. 23 we'll see highs of 29 in Kisumu, and it's currently 22 and we'll see highs of 30 in Kakamega. Partly sunny conditions at 20 in Kampala, highs of 26, and we'll see highs of 32 in a mostly sunny Dar es Salaam. It's there's smoke in Johannesburg. What's going on? It's 15 degrees at the moment. It'll go to highs of 24. It's a hazy morning there, lots of fog all of a sudden. It's 27 degrees and sunny in Lagos, going to highs of 33, and we'll see highs of 31 in Kinshasa, where it's cloudy at 23. Out in Beijing, it's a sunny evening, highs of 15 and lows of -1, -2 and cloudy in Paris, highs of 10, and we'll see highs of 9 in a cloudy London. It's 7 degrees Wednesday night in New York. Coming into Thursday, we'll see highs of 15 and lows of 2.
Spice up your life.
All right, so traffic has not actually dealt us that heavy a blow today. It's been an easy morning. A little bit left of it on the Thika Superhighway coming into the city and on Jogo Road here and there, but coming out of Westlands will not be a difficulty, at least not for now. And even Limuru Road has wrapped up its business, at least for now. So through the morning, talk to us, SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
8:25, and the conversation continues with Liz Lenger. She's the chair of the Copyright Tribunal. Liz, you've explained very well. You've explained to us what copyright is all about and all those aspects of intellectual property. Now let's come to the tribunal.
Okay.
What do you deal with at the tribunal?
Okay. So our mandate at the moment is a little narrow, but we specifically deal with disputes arising from decisions from the Kenya Copyright Board, who administers copyright on behalf of the government. So they give licenses, for example, to what we call collective management organizations, CMOs. So Kenya Association of Music Producers, Music Copyright Society of Kenya, MCSK, PRISC, Performance Rights Society of Kenya. They administer those rights. We also have what we call CopyKen. They administer reprographic rights, so basically books, the right to photocopy. So, but CopyKen has really been having a challenge for a while there. They've not been licensed. So, because they've not organized themselves. So, but those are their rights. Yeah. So, when they're getting a license from Kekobo and they feel like either they have been refused a license and it was unfair, then they would bring that dispute to us. Where they feel like there have been certain unreasonable demands from Kekobo, they will come to us. And then subsequently, these CMOs license the music to the users. For example, the stations, the TV stations, owners of entertainment establishments,
Matatus, salons,
Matatus, all that. So if any of them feels like Camp PRISC or MCSK did not refuse to give them a license and they feel it was unfair, they will come to us. If they feel like also again some unreasonable demands are being made for them to get a license, then they'll also come to us. And then we also have disputes over registration of copyright. Now, registration of copyright is not a must because copyright is automatic. The minute you fixated it, you've moved it from your head and you've transposed it.
As long as you've written it down, it's automatic.
It's automatic.
Okay.
However, we have seen that now registration becomes really important because of asserting this right and pointing to you as the author. However, that certificate is not the full and final because there will be instances where someone will register it unfairly, right? Or in a sly fashion. So if that is an issue, then you come to us and say, we are challenging this registration of copyright. I'm actually a co-author, or I have some rights in it and I have been removed. I am not in this certificate. I've not been recognized as, as the example you gave earlier, right? I've not been included. So if you want to challenge that registration, then you also bring it to us. Then we have also the mandate to grant what we call fair remuneration, where a musical works is used in a broadcast. I feel like that could have been more, of course, because copyright is about protecting all those rights I mentioned, or rather those industries I mentioned that are protected by copyright. So it's not just music, it would be artistic works, it would be whatever, right? So it's an issue of that infringement, or that you use without permission, and then you come to us. So for now, it's just musical works. So for musical works used in a broadcast or in an advert, they can come to us in their act. And then we would determine based on industry standards how they should get compensated. But we hope that in future, that mandate can be broadened. Because the ethos of copyright law is if it is not yours, then you have to find the author and clear the rights, get the permission and pay for it. And if you don't, then we would, as a tribunal...
So the responsibility is on the user.
Yes.
To find the owner.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. But
clear something here for me. You talked about, so number one, a broadcasting station such as ours, we would be paying, for use of all the music that we play here. So we'll pay all the 3 CMOs or 1 CMO or whatever, right? So we go to MCSK, we go to PRISC, we go to Camp, and we are paying royalties for the stuff that we've played on air. Now, this other one of the fair remuneration, where does it come up?
Okay.
I hear you saying that if I've used it, is it that if I've used it for commercial purposes, or is it if I've just picked your song and used it for a promo, for instance?
So with broadcasting, it's a bit different, because your immediate person, first of all, you deal with the CMO, right?
Yes.
And it will depend with the representations that the CMO has given you, right? So one of the things I can tell you in terms of the traditional work of a CMO is supposed to administer and collect royalties on behalf of artists where they cannot, or it's not practical. So for example, now here we play Nonini, we play who. It wouldn't make sense for Nonini to come and say, hey, you guys, you played my song today, give me 5,000 bob. Then Nameless comes and says, oh, even me, you played my song, give me 10,000 bob, right? So that's why CMOs exist. And then we've seen, like, for example, with MCSK, they changed their model. And I think it's one of the things that the artists have not understood. Because what happens is when you join MCSK, you have 2 documents that you sign as an artist. The mechanical rights agreement and the deed of assignment. And then what they have done is that all these other rights that accrue directly to the author, aside from now the public use of the music, you see, ideally, because this is my shamba, right? I should be the one to say it can be used on an ad for Emirates, it can be used on an ad for so-and-so. It should be me. I should be the one to decide whether I will have the music on Spotify. I can have it on, I don't know which other platform. Right. So, but what MCSK did, they have such a document where members sign. And unfortunately, some of them are not reading it. So if you're clearing from MCSK, you have already, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on what shoe you're wearing, cleared the rights. But in the traditional sense, a CMO is only supposed to administer as far as public performance is concerned. That's it. Then everything else is left to me to decide.
Okay. Now, would your representation, so would you then say it makes sense for you to have representation legally to then be able to explain some of these things to you? Because if you're looking at it from a layman's point of view, if you have a piece of look, man, what you're looking for is some kind of profit, maybe commercial value, recognition.
I want money to start coming. I mean, I came out of the studio, I want this song, it plays on radio, kiss a tune.
When is it ching ching? When is it happening, right?
Yeah.
All these other things that you talk about, which could essentially get you in some kind of trouble or some kind of loss later.
Or that could mean more money, right?
Or could mean more money, right? It's not it doesn't seem to be bareback right there for you to see. You maybe have to do a little bit of digging to find it.
Yes.
So that it almost seems as though the process demands that you have representation by somebody who understands where these things are lying.
Exactly. And that's why I said I think we really need to embrace the business side. You know, just because I give you a document and I say just sign here, I'll give you some money, or I'm here to protect you, you shouldn't just take it on the face of it. Interrogate and ask, so how are you helping me? I see a document here that has very big words, jargon. And it will legalize, especially when we're talking about IP and contracts on copyright. Hey, we use some big words. So don't sign something you don't even understand. Don't sign something where you need to sit with a Cambridge or an Oxford dictionary and say, this one, I'm like, this word.
Then I join it with the rest.
Yeah, then you join it with the rest. Like, get someone to talk to you about it and you understand and say, okay, what does this mean? Do I really need to be in this engagement or relationship to make sense?
So do you find then that folks who then come to the tribunal disputing a particular matter, do you find that sometimes the one who comes as who are they now? The defendant? Yes. The
respondent.
They'll come as respondent or complainant or applicant.
Maybe in this case it would be the defendant, that they are not understanding this jargon and that's why they've gotten themselves in a bit of a pickle. Do you find that they are in the majority?
Yeah, they're a majority. And the good thing with the tribunal, we are not like a traditional court of law, right? We're here to guide. We're supposed to make dispute resolution accessible, expedient, friendly. Yeah. And at the same time also we are supposed to help you protect these relationships, because yes, makosa imefanyika leo, but tomorrow you will need each other.
Indeed.
Right? So us, we're not here to say, oh, you did this, you know. No, but we will say, unfortunately here the law says X, Y, and Z. Especially if you've because you see when you come to the tribunal, first of all, we'll be like, you guys can't settle this without us.
Surely.
You can't. Seriously, like really, like we try and steer you that direction.
We even encourage you to go and
we're even pushing you.
Yeah.
So that when you discuss and agree, you bring that settlement agreement, and then us will stamp it and it's registered at the High Court and it's a solid document, right? So we'll push you towards that. Then now if you can't, then we'll bring you back and say, okay, now you are saying X, Y, and Z, where are your documents? You are saying X, Y, and Z, where are your documents? Yeah. And then we'll review and say, now under the law, because you failed to do X, Y, and Z here, then you don't have a right. And here, because you did X, Y, and Z, maybe you're also wrong. So we find a way to be fair. You know, we won't be that strict, but of course we will be guided by the law. We'll be also guided by case law, because case law sometimes advances faster than the traditional legislation, right? Because it will be assessing the circumstances of the case, and then we explain it to you.
Do you think courts of law would pay this attention that a tribunal would pay to a case like this?
So litigation or going to court is more complicated. And I don't say this to discourage people, but you see, with the litigation, there's a lot of paperwork. There's a way you have to file documents, use a certain order under the Civil Procedure Code. Yeah, even me as a lawyer, Bona, I sit down and I'm like,
not today.
You know, like, no, I don't think this is my portion. Yeah, because and some forms can look so similar, and if you're not expert, you've not been exposed to this, you might just file the wrong form, and they kind of look the same sort of thing. So that's the challenge. If you're going to introduce evidence, there's a way you introduce evidence in a traditional court of law. To us, as a tribunal, because we're informal, we'll take the evidence and then review it and say, okay, for this evidence to be admissible, do you have 1, 2, 3? Okay, yes. If you don't, then unfortunately we can't take this evidence because the law says X, Y, and Z. And then if there are any extenuating circumstances, we figure out how justice will prevail. Yeah, because us, we have the time, and we have we have a very exclusive jurisdiction, so we have a lot more flexibility, and that is why you would want us to be your first court of dispute resolution before you go to even the High Court. And that's why as Kenyans are learning more about the tribunal and the regulations we have brought forward, then they see that there are some areas they could also benefit. We push for amendments for the law so that now they can start coming to us first before they go to the High Court.
Right.
Because you want someone who understands your industry. You want someone who understands, for lack of a better term, the common bad manners in the industry. And this person who the perpetrator can be called out and say, my friend here, clearly you saw this person, hakujua, and then you took advantage. Why?
Do you see such cases where you can clearly see, all right, the person that you are going to tell, unfortunately, the law, but you can just look at them and see this person was acting in utmost good faith. This person is completely, they were ignorant, but really they're the one on the right. If I remove this provision of the law, they're the one in the right. Do you find such cases, and how do you resolve them to make sure that actually the true mother of the child takes the child?
Yeah, I mean, it will always vary with the circumstance, right? And you have to play that whole King Solomon approach. And that's why even from the beginning, when we've seen the documents, we already know, right? On our end, we won't say it, but we probably already know. And that's why we'll be like, you really can't sort it out.
As in, we've seen the end.
Yeah, as we've seen the end. But we're like, hey, Wanda, just go outside and talk. And I think one thing that we really need to embrace as Kenyans is the ability to say, Enyewe, I messed up. I messed up. How can I make it right? You know, even if you have your lawyer saying, no, we can win this. But you yourself, you know, you've not done the right thing. You've not obeyed the law. Just eat humble pie and do the right thing. Yeah, even not just because unfortunately sometimes the law will legitimize also what is not ethical, right? It is what it is, right?
Yes.
But when you know I've not done the right thing, just accept. And you see, I have seen that in other countries, in other jurisdictions. Like I did an internship in Las Vegas, and I saw how those lawyers, I understood how Americans make money. Yeah, because in the law firm I was working at, they handled a lot of entertainment disputes, a lot of image rights disputes and whatnot. And I would see my boss talk to the other lawyer and say, yeah, by the way, I think my client really messed up. Let's make them understand. And I think I can get him to make such an offer. Can you talk to your guy as well so that they can just be lenient? And we settle this matter. We save him money. We save my client money. As we get paid, we move on to the next brief. I found that so impressive. I was like, us here, we're adversarial. We're like, we will fight to
Which
the
comes
end.
to my question, Liz. So in our case, do you sit sometimes at the tribunal and you can clearly see that the baby belongs to Ndu? All right, but here is Eric coming and he's adamant and he's not refusing. Oh, you encourage them. Can you guys just go and talk? And we go and talk and we come back and Eric is still saying, no, I want the baby.
Give me my baby.
But you know clearly Eric has absolutely no idea where this baby came from.
Yeah.
But the law gives Eric the baby. Do you sit in such situations and then say, here is our ruling. Eric, you have all the paperwork for the baby, but it's not your baby.
Yes.
Tumemalizana na hiyo story.
Definitely. Because you see, the thing is, some of these documents, when you register something, doesn't mean that someone else can't challenge it. If they have a legitimate interest, a legitimate right, they should challenge it, and they can challenge it. They just have to make sure that they have the right evidence and they have the right information to back up what they're trying to assert or claim. And that's enough. And then, once in a while, you'll get one of those complicated issues, and you just pray for wisdom.
So,
as you apply the law.
So then do you see that you could have some of these things wrapped up before the tribe, in time? Okay, let me ask that properly. That do they take time then to be able to settle? That, you're just not being able, because essentially we're looking at graduated mediation here.
Yeah.
And you're not able to agree on a particular thing. That's one side. And then it's taken time. Then where do you say, or are you bound by time to be able to settle cases?
Yes, like the tribunal, we're really bound by time. Our tribunal, we have a very quick turnaround time. Sometimes we ask ourselves, is it practical? So from the time we receive an application, we have, about 30 days to give a judgment. Yeah, so which means everyone has to be quick and on their feet. And they have to have their documents on standby and whatever to be able to put together their case, because we have about 30 days.
What if somebody's not satisfied with the judgment that has been given?
So if they're not satisfied, then now they will proceed to the High Court. So as we
which
have
you are trying to avoid.
Which you want to avoid. But so for us, we will do our level best. We will draft a carefully thought out judgment where we are considering all the laws, all the practices, all the case law. Because you see, the thing with copyright, there's a lot of emerging issues. Yeah. So all these emerging issues we'll always also borrow from foreign countries, foreign jurisdictions, because they also guide. Because you see, the principles of the law are universal. Yeah. So we will review some of these international case law as well and say, hey, okay, because we don't have a specific act, provision in the Copyright Act, maybe that deals with maybe AI, for example, artificial intelligence, then we'll be able to say, we have seen in America a case like this, Australia. So we review all these documents and cases, and we're able to say, okay, this is how I think it will be fair in this situation. And then we explain to we have in our judgment, we've explained, you can see a sound reasoning. So much so that now if you're going to appeal, it will be very difficult even for the judge to give a fresh judgment.
Okay.
That's what the tribunal does, because we also guide the High Court, because we are specialized, right? So we are able to guide. So when someone proceeds to appeal, we have made sure that we have spoken in a language that the High Court judge will understand and say, anyway, even you could have used this money to do something else.
So of course, there is the law, and you talked about, so the way in which you present evidence before a tribunal is different from, of course, the way in which you present evidence before a court of law. So then, obviously, I'm assuming then your human cockle then is fixed, and you're looking. We do have some cases, and I think there are very many that we can say, you can know that this individual, this was their thing. For some reason or another, they may not have documented. They may not have put it down. The person on the other side of the divide may have more muscle financially, may have the muscle of, documentation. They may have the experience to know that, look, and, whether or not it's right or wrong, they may have actually taken this creation of somebody else. Your human eye is what you're looking through here. Would you say that in this case, you would adjudicate on a human perspective, or are we sticking to the required evidentiary threshold?
We would still stick to the law. Yeah, we would still stick to the law. What we do
whether your gut tells you something else.
Unfortunately, because you see, when the law is very careful and carefully thought through. Yeah. So, for example, you didn't have a copyright certificate, but you're claiming that you've had interaction. So the law is clear in terms of even case law. Can you prove this interaction? Show us this interaction. Even a text message. We have seen now that evidence rules have really expanded. There was a time if it wasn't a paper you printed on paper, it wasn't evidence. But now we're seeing the evidence laws are saying even a text, just a simple text saying, hi, we are set for that pitch meeting, so ulituma email.
That's enough.
That could be enough on the context. It will show, because now you are able to show access, right? So there are those things you must do. That's why I say, Aki, don't be casual with your creations. Don't be casual. Yeah, you're in a bar having drinks, you create something. Even a paper napkin would suffice as a contract. There's a case law in the UK that says that upheld a paper napkin. They wrote each other something, and the court said that is a contract. Even if it's on a paper napkin, it's a contract.
It's a contract.
Yeah. So I think that's the thing that we really need to embrace. And then the other mandate and power we have as the tribunal is where there's foreign works that you want access to, and the author has refused to grant it to you, has refused to grant it in the Kenyan market. Then you go to Kenya Copyright Board and tell Kekobo, I want access to this work, but the author has refused. Then Kekobo will review the issue, and they may summon the author and say, hey, why are you not licensing this work? And interrogate the issue, and then they might probably find that it's a common good issue. You have to license this work. And then if the author is not happy now with that decision, they can come to us and say, Kikobo has done this, they're licensing my work, I'm not happy or whatever. And then we also further review. Right. We're yet to have such a case, but that's what we can do as well.
You have that mandate.
We have that mandate. And then we also have the mandate to grant preservation orders, what we call the Anton Pillar Awards, and Anton Pillar orders, which basically help preserve evidence. And you see with copyright, for example, if let's say we recorded a song and then you're the producer, you have all the gadgets, and then you come and say, at least you never came to my studio. I never saw you. And I was there and I saw you doing your thing. You even saved a folder. And the minute I'm feeling aggrieved, I can come to the tribunal and say, hey, I have this evidence that needs to be preserved. Because
make sure
this person
this guy
will
does
destroy
not delete the folder.
Yes, make sure they don't delete the folder, or they don't do this. Send people even to come and take pictures or whatever. That kind of, so we can give those kind of orders as well. Yeah. And hopefully eventually we'll have a broader mandate so that we can listen to copyright infringement on a large scale, because we are seeing a lot of Kenyans, especially youth, they'll go to social media. How many times have we seen social media people shaming, name and shame? There was a time there was a hashtag name and shame, and then you'll be like, oh, you stole my photograph, you stole my music, you stole my film. Yeah. So I'm like, no. If you go to a dispute resolution place, a tribunal or something, we'll help you resolve. If there's issues of ignorance, you'll be educated. And then there'll be instances where you can all make money. Let's make that money. And then the next deal tomorrow, you're more informed. You're better informed.
Yeah.
You're more smart in your approach. Yeah.
I have a question here from my friend Limo. He's asking, is there an overlap of mandates between the tribunal and the small claims court? Are there instances where people go to the small claims court with matters relating to copyright?
So the thing is, if it's an issue of claiming money, that's because the small claims court looks at the issue of money. Yeah. How much are you owed? But the minute you will introduce matters IP, matters copyright, matters patent or whatever, they have no jurisdiction. So they might even say, you know what, because we cannot confirm who is the author, I can't confirm that you are owed 100,000. Yeah. So there's not really an overlap. It's more about,
so those ones can deal with, okay, we had a contract, you're supposed to perform at this concert for 2 hours, and I believe you only performed for an hour, so I'm paying you half.
Yes.
That one is no issue of dispute of.
Yeah, because there's already been a document that the court would review and say, oh, there's a contract. What happened?
Unajua kulikuwa na jam, ama unajua the previous artist there. The curtain raiser stayed forever on stage, and I was supposed to finish my performance at midnight because I was going for another gig. Yeah. And so I came on to the stage at 11.
I was ready to go.
Liz, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for explaining the copyrights tribunal to us.
Thanks. We could talk about copyright for like 2 weeks.
She will come again. You will come again. We need to educate and make sure that all of us understand these matters.
Yeah.
Liz Lenjo is the chairperson of the Copyrights Tribunal. She's been here with us talking to us about that, the Copyrights Tribunal. Thank you very much for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation today. We'll be back tomorrow. It's the third day of the third month of 2020.
2023.
Third day of the third month of the 2023rd year of the whatever.
So. It's okay, no problem. No wahala.
Have a lovely day, people. Good morning. It's 10 a.m. These guys are trying to rain on my parade.
Spice up your life